The Pacifistas, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's about as good as any video topic as any, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Minor note before we get started, if you hear a humming in the background, that is nothing that's because of me, that is because my neighbor, 5 seconds before starting this video, decided to break out the power washer and clean the entire side of his house, and it's a big fucking house, so we're just going to have to make do with this. But, yeah, okay, the Pacifistas. So, if the world government wasn't already terrifying enough with their cipher pole, secret agent James Bond shit going on, and their entire legion of soldiers that make up the Marines, some of the strongest characters in the entire story, like Akainu and Sengoku and Garp, and then of course you even have some of the strongest pirates in the world that make up the Seven Warlords, and then you have Buggy. So, you know, that's pretty terrifying already, but then you have the fact that they have an entire army made up of cyborgs at their disposal that can shoot lasers. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry, they're not cyborgs, I get those confused sometimes. No, Frankie is a cyborg, because he still has organic parts in him. No, the Pacifistas are, oh man, I don't know what I would call them there. I'm a cybernetic organism, living tissue over metal endoskeleton. Yeah, let's go with that, sure. In fact, you can even tell that maybe Oda took some inspiration from Arnold Schwarzenegger's portrayal as the Terminator when designing Kuma. I don't know, big, huge guy, giant muscles, and he kind of looks like he's wearing sunglasses. I don't know. Maybe the bear aesthetic was just added in later. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So, basically this all starts with Bartholomew Kuma and Dr. Vegapunk, the mysterious head scientist in the world of One Piece that I really hope makes an appearance soon, because I want to find out what the deal is with this guy. They had the perfect opportunity to at least reveal him during the Punk Hazard arc, because Caesar Clown was like his former associate that was working on Punk Hazard, you know, in the facility, which caused the massive disaster, like the nuclear bomb detonation that turned Punk Hazard into a wasteland. We see Vegapunk in flashbacks. We hear him speak, I believe, or at least we hear the narrator, you know, quote Vegapunk, but we don't actually get to see him yet, so I hope he makes an appearance first. But anyway, Bartholomew Kuma, who was already a member of the Seven Warlords at this point, he was previously a member of the Revolutionary Army. Don't know what's up with that there, although I have my theories. That's kind of a video for another day. Actually, I've already kind of discussed that. There was my Revolutionary video and my video on Kuma himself, so go check that out there. So anyway, Vegapunk decided, hey, I'm gonna make an entire army of, like, robotic soldiers for the military, for the world government, and decided to use Kuma as the base. Now, the reason why he decided to use Kuma instead of using, like, he could have picked any other member of the Warlords to use as a basis for this. He could have made Doflamingo robots going around. But, I mean, come on, guys. If you're gonna make an entire freaking army of robots, you want them to be as physically imposing as possible. So, number one, you look at what you have to work with. You look at all the members of the Warlords and of the Marines, and you try to think, you know, who is somebody that's really physically intimidating? Somebody that everybody in the world knows about, is revered and terrified. You know, you could have always used Akainu or Sengoku or Garp, but, you know, Kuma has the freaking height advantage. He's one of the tallest characters in all of One Piece that's, you know, outside of the realm of giants, and he's referred to as the Tyrant Bartholomew Kuma. So, most people already are kind of scared of him just for that type of title and that reputation, so, alright, I'll make giant robots out of this guy. And then you take a little bit of inspiration from Kizaru with his Pika Pika no Mi, his Light Fruit, or his Twinkle Twinkle Fruit power, or whatever it's called, with his ability to shoot lasers, and then you take that and using Vegapunk's Devil Fruit technology. You know, Vegapunk was always a guy that was really good at adapting Devil Fruit abilities into weapons. You know, he could fucking weaponize a pair of scissors. He could add the Tiger Fruit to this, and then you have a freaking scissor tiger running around, you know? So, he already was pretty good at that. So, either he either did something to, you know, Kizaru's actual power itself, and adapted that into the Pacifistas, or he just took Kizaru's laser as like a base and developed his own laser technology using that ability as the basis, you know? Like, I want to create a laser that's just as devastating and works in the same way as Kizaru's laser, right? The only reason I bring this up is because whenever X Drake or Diaz Drake was fighting against one of the Pacifistas and he was using the laser, he noted that it was Kizaru's laser. So, either Vegapunk was such a genius, he was able to create an exact replica of Kizaru's laser, or he did something with Kizaru's Devil Fruit itself, managed to adapt that into the Pacifistas themselves as like a weapon. Given that Vegapunk's a genius, either one seems rather likely to me, but what do you guys think below? Okay, so on top of that, you also have Kuma himself that has been physically modified to the point where he is now completely all machine. In fact, I don't know if you would want to consider him a cyborg anymore or not, considering that he probably still does have some organic traits to him. Like, I remember when Zoro cut him with his lion song technique, you know, you saw all the metal shit on his shoulder, but you still saw some, like, muscle tissue in there, too, mixed in. I think what happened when he became the PX-0 and, you know, Ivankov met him during Marineford and Doflamingo was explaining, like, he's no longer the Kuma you once knew, I think that means he just, Vegapunk either completely removed his brain and replaced it with a computer, or he still has a brain, it's just completely wiped from his former memories, and he's left as just a shell of what he used to be that's driven just on the orders that he's given through the world government via this computer in his brain, or like some microchip or some shit. Personally, I think, my theory is that Vegapunk and Kuma are still part of the Revolutionary Army, and this was all a setup, and Vegapunk was personally responsible for programming the stuff into Kuma as PX-0. This would make sense, given that whenever Kuma wanted to protect the Straw Hat's ship over the time skip, Vegapunk, you know, if Vegapunk was completely allied with the world government, why would he do that? Why would be like, oh, Kuma, you wanna make sure that the Straw Hat's ship is protected and guarded, even though you're an enemy of the Straw Hats because you're a member of the Seven Warlords? Okay, I'll make sure to program that into you after you become a robot. Here's the kicker. Kuma went to Vegapunk and asked him to do this, because Kuma knew that after he became a PX, he wouldn't be having the free thinking anymore. Okay, so if Vegapunk really wasn't on the up and up, he could have just been like, okay, Kuma, if that's your one stipulation for becoming a complete PX, then sure, I'll do that. I'll program that into you after you become a robot. But no, he then he could have, like, went back on his word. He could have been like, huh, stupid idiot, I'm not doing that. I work for the world government. I'm not programming that shit into you. But he did. So I think that is proof that he really is allied with the revolutionaries, and that's going to lead to something much bigger, too. But yeah, currently Kuma, for all intents and purposes, for what we're aware of, is a mindless drone that will just serve the world government's task, or whatever task that Vegapunk programmed into him for the moment. As for the PX army themselves, as I said, they're all similar to Kuma, although there are slight differences. The one that's Kuma, and still is the PX-0, does carry the Bible around. So whenever one of the Pacifistas show up, an easy way to determine whether or not they're really Kuma or not, because it does get confusing sometimes, especially during the Sabaody arc when these things started popping up everywhere. You know, we just got introduced to Kuma properly during Thriller Bark. I mean, he was revealed before that, but we just got introduced to him properly there. And then the very next arc, Sabaody, you have like 2, 3, 4 of these guys popping up all over the place. It's fucking nuts. So you don't know which one is real and which one isn't. Whenever you see the Bible, that's the dead giveaway. Another way you can tell, and this is something that's not always apparent because the Kumas always wear gloves, even the real Kuma wears gloves, but of course, the real genuine Kuma, the PX-0, has the paw pads from his paw fruit power, and the PX don't have those. This, you know, it doesn't make, I mean, it makes perfect sense why even the PX-0 would still have them. Vegapunk being able to put Devil Fruit abilities into inanimate objects, you know, being able to put Devil Fruit abilities into the PX-0, I mean, or at least him retaining his Devil Fruit abilities would be easy for him. Although that does bring up an interesting question, as if he was already able to take, you know, Devil Fruits and put them into guns and swords, why not take Devil Fruits and put them into the Pacifistas, who are machines that are going to do whatever you tell them to do? Maybe there was a problem there because, like, for instance, you have a gun, and the gun becoming an animal, you know, it's still an animal. It still can think and feel and be scared, as we saw with Funkfried. You know, Funkfried was Spondum's sword. Funkfried could still be intimidated by Frankie, so maybe he felt like adding a Zoan ability into the Pacifistas, that might add a fault with them. them. That might make them easier to be intimidated by, and you don't want that. You want a fucking Death Squad army that would just obliterate anything in its path, do any orders that they were given. That's what you want when you want an army of robots. Am I not right? In terms of exact numbers, we don't know how many PXs there are. We know the numbering scheme. It's like PX0 is the real Kuma, and then after that they're numbered, PX1 forward are all just robots that were created by Vegapunk. The ones that showed up during Sabaody were PX4. That was the one that the Straw Hats had to fight against, and the Straw Hats, they managed to win, but it was like barely. And this served as like a benchmark for them later on, because after the time skip, Zoro and Sanji were both able to take one out with just one attack each with almost no effort, and they were able to knock out one Pacifista. So that showed how much they grew. But before the time skip, man, they had to just pound this thing. I mean, we're talking all the Straw Hats pulling together all their strongest techniques. You have Luffy, Zoro, Sanji all going in. Luffy's charging up freaking Gear Second, Zoro's all three swords, freaking Ashura. Then you have freaking Sanji, Diabo Jambe just slamming into this thing. If that wasn't good enough, you have Frankie breaking out Coup de Vent. You have Robin doing her all like Giantos Mono shit. Usopp breaking out some of his strongest ammo shots. Just all pulling their energy and trying to take this thing down. They succeed, but they are beat to shit afterwards, okay? It's a robot. You can sever its arm, it's still gonna come after you, It will do anything until you are dead, Okay, that's enough Terminator references for the video. But yeah, so they're built pretty damn solid. However, they are unable to use things like hockey. So if someone is very adept at using armament hockey, that's sort of nullified the advantage of having like the steel skin and things like that. Also, you have characters like Zoro that are able to cut through steel and very hard, substances like that. So even if you have a really skilled swordsman, you might be able to succeed. But the terrifying thing about the Pacifistas right now isn't just facing one-on-one in combat. We've already seen that the Straw Hats can handle that no problem. The problem is in the sheer numbers, and like I said, we don't exactly know how many there are, but considering the fact that they can basically come off on an assembly line, and, this is the world government we're talking about here that's manufacturing these things, mass manufacturing these things, they don't have to worry about things like resources or money. If Vegapunk's like, hey guys, I need a little bit more material, I want to make 30 more Pacifistas this week, and the world government would be just like, oh yeah, here, take it, go ahead. So there's no limits here to these things. During the battle at Marineford, we've seen at least 20 of them, possibly more, a few dozen. But another terrifying thing about them, aside from their numbers, is that they are all linked together. They are robots, so they can concentrate their fire into one thing. They don't get distracted. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that, because they do sort of get distracted. Like, there was this one time, this was just in the anime, but whenever Chopper went into his Monster Point form, I believe it was the PX1 that was trying to scan the Monster Point Chopper, and because he didn't recognize it because Chopper was in this, this form that they've never seen before, the Pacifista just kind of stalled out. Just kind of like scanning them. I don't know, maybe they're hooked up to like a shitty internet connection, so it's just like, hold on guys, I gotta scan this giant reindeer gorilla thing to make sure it's not in the database here. Scanning. Okay, no, it's not in there. All right, back to you, Sniper King. And that was anime only, sure, but it's still something I think does happen in the manga a few times where they do get confused or distracted. But there's other times it does come in really handy to have that ability. They can, like, scan every person in the area just like that and determine who has a bounty, who doesn't, who's pretending to be someone else, who isn't. When they go to Sabaody after the time skip with Sentomaru being, like, the leader of the scientific division, like, directly under Vegapunk, after the time skip, he gets promoted to an actual Marine status. We don't know what position Sentomaru has, although he's wearing the cool cloak, so it might very well be Captain, Commodore, maybe even a Vice Admiral, I don't know. But yeah, Sentomaru is kind of the one that always leads the Pacifistas into charge and gives them orders and commands and shit like that. But they go to Sabaody because they heard a rumor that the Straw Hat Pirates were getting back together. Of course, it was the fake Straw Hats led by Damalo Black, but as soon as the Pacifistas showed up, they were able to determine right away not only is Damalo Black not really Luffy and who he really is, his true identity, but he was also able to determine that the real Straw Hat Luffy was here. even though Luffy was in disguise and everything, I mean, it wasn't really a good disguise, but they was still around. That was the case there. So that seems pretty useful. There's scanning feature there. It also tells them, what their bounty is and everything like that. And I would believe this would also relay that information back to the world government to let them know what they're seeing. I believe Vegapunk probably could, have a computer monitor or something to see what the Pacifistas see. I would assume that is a feature. One of the downsides, though, of the Pacifistas is that they only really have one weapon to work with. Aside from things like, obviously they have superior strength because they're robots and, like I said, they can lose arms and, get injuries and they don't really settle down. But the only other weapon they have aside from that is their lasers, which are rather intimidating. Sure, the ability to shoot lasers, but they only have 3 places on their bodies they can shoot these out. They can shoot them from their hands and then their mouth. I'm just saying, if I was designing a robot army, I would have, a big fucking cannon. Like, you see that thing on Kuma's chest, right? It kind of looks like a giant target. I kind of want him to, unzip that jacket and then just, giant fuck-off light cannon underneath. Or, cannons in the back. You're robots here. You can install, you're not limited by just your eyes and your ears. They're robots. You can install sensors in their backs and other places. You can have them shoot lasers out their fucking butts. That's the last place I would expect a laser to come from, I'm just saying. So, yeah, it seems like these need to be upgraded a little bit. Now, it is hinted at that there are different versions, different, updates to these Pacifistas technology. The Pacifistas that the Straw Hats fought against before the time skip and after the time skip, those were the same models. And I don't remember if I know Sentomaru said that they haven't been improved at all, because they were, the prototypes or the first generation Pacifistas, but in the 2 years since then and since the War of the Best and everything like that, I would assume there's also updated versions of the Pacifistas that would be a little bit more difficult to contend with the Straw Hats. But yeah, if we're just talking about the first generation Pacifistas, then the Straw Hats can handle them no problem. Then again, you also have the white Pacifistas, the Shiro Kumas or whatever those were called from the movie film Z. So those were pretty cool to see something else being implemented there. It kind of gave the idea that the Neo Marines were at least a little bit on the same level as the regular Marines. Of course, that was just all a movie. Still pretty cool to see that. I want to see the updated versions. I mean, we really haven't seen anything from Kuma or the Pacifistas in a while, now that I'm actually thinking about it. They showed up after the time skip to show the Straw Hats and how much they've grown and everything. But we haven't seen Sentomaru since. We haven't seen any of the Pacifistas confront the Straw Hats since. You'd think that you would always send a Pacifista with you wherever you go. Wherever there's a mission, always at least send one of these things. They're mass-produced. They're coming off an assembly line. You can spare the power, and not anybody would just be able to take these things out. For instance, Fujitora could have brought one to Dressrosa. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody even knows if it's the real Kuba or not. You'd be like, let's imagine you're just a regular pirate in the One Piece world. Or let's imagine you're even a pirate that has some notoriety. You got a bounty of 100 million berries or something, even if you know how to use hockey to some extent, and you have a devil fruit power. You see one of these guys rocking down towards you. Alright? I'm like, okay, it's either gonna be Bartholomew Kuma, one of the 7 warlords, the tyrant, really strong dude, has the ability to nullify pretty much any attack that comes in direct contact with him, has the ability to divert projectile attacks, and has the ability to send me flying hundreds of miles away. Okay, that seems like a shitty deal. Or, the other option, it could be a robot specifically designed for combat by the world government, created by the most brilliant mind on the planet that's 500 years above his time, that has the ability to shoot fucking lasers and all this advanced machinery that can scan the area and target me wherever I go. Either way, that seems like a pretty damn big deal to face off against. That doesn't seem like something that you would want to deal with. Even if you know hockey and you have a devil fruit, if there's enough Pacifistas, it should be a pain in the ass to take them down. you know, because while you're busy trying to fight one or two of them, the other 3 or 4 are all concentrating fire directly at you. Now, yeah, if you trained your Haki really well, like Luffy did, to the point where it's like, you know, he could dodge the light attacks like it's no big deal, don't take that for a benchmark. Don't do that. Don't set up Luffy like, oh, well, Luffy was able to dodge the attacks from the Pacifistas, therefore they're just fucking fodder. No, don't view that. Luffy is the main character, guys, and he just finished a 2-year training regiment. Oda kind of wanted to show him being badass. Don't set that up as the standard for everybody. And like I said, those were still the prototype Pacifistas. Those were still the first generation model. You know, this is like, you know, comparing the iPhone 1, well, this is a droid, but this is like comparing the first generation droid to like my S5 here. You know, like, well, the S, you know, I can't remember what the first generation droid was called, but whatever. The first generation droid, man, that's slow as shit. Therefore, these new ones are just slow as shit. You know, I'm sure there's some updated versions of the Pacifistas, and I am sure, Sentomaru delivered that information back to Vegapunk. He walked in there, fucking, hey, Vegapunk, what's going on? And Vegapunk's like, I don't know. Oh, what the hell did you do to my Pacifistas? Oh, well, the Straw Hats showed up again. Hey, by the way, maybe we could work on protecting these things from Haki, because these 2 people with Haki just wreck their shit. Also, maybe we can make the lasers go a little bit faster. Maybe we could program the light lasers to actually move maybe closer to the speed of light. Vegapunk's like, oh, it's okay, I just made the 5th generation model. Not only do they have the giant fuck-off light cannon, and they have the ability to sense life from 30 yards away, they also can, they could do your taxes for you, and they also have a built-in calculator. Oh man, that's great! So yeah, there's a better generation of them going up there. I really hope there's improved weapons, and I want to see Kuma again. I want to see the PX-0 in action, you know? Really taking advantage of not only the Pacifista upgrades, but also the paw pad things. That would be really freaking scary, because I think the Straw Hats are definitely going to fight against Kuma again. They're going to fight against him, and they're going to have to contend with this mindless robot that not only has all the lasers at his disposal, although in Kuma's case, in the PX-0's case, he doesn't have the lasers on his hands. He can fire it from his mouth, because on his hands you have the paw pads. Although you'd still think Vegapunk would figure out some way to, like, wrist-mounted lasers or something like that. Just deck it out in lasers, Vegapunk. Just install lasers all over it. You just make it a freaking, like, light disco ball of just damnation whenever they walk into a place. Pacifista just jumps off the battleship, make them fly, jet boosters, that would be cool. I'm coming up with pretty good ideas here, Oda. You better be taking fucking notes here, okay? Jet boosters, butt lasers, giant chest lasers, and disco balls of damnation. You know, keep that in mind, and we can move forward with this story in a pretty good way. I know that you love giant mech animes, Oda. I know you like that. You have Frankie going around with his robot, and then in the last chapter, you have Beijing turning into his giant Big Father Castle thing, which we might be getting a mech battle between Big Daddy and Big Mama. I don't know how that's gonna go, but you clearly like it. I think you can do more stuff with it. Last thing before I go is, of course, Frankie, as I mentioned. Frankie, after training on Baltimore for 2 years, took some of the information away from Vegapunk, leading to me believe that he's been working on this Pacifista project for a long time, because even in his abandoned laboratory, he still had schematics for, the lasers and everything like that. So Frankie was able to adapt, the Pacifista's lasers into his own body, making the Radical Beam, which is a cooler name. Although the downside with Frankie is he needs to use both hands to, like, charge it. He just can't fire it out of his hands like the Pacifistas can, so that's a little bit of a disadvantage. Still pretty fucking cool, though. So yeah, he's been working on this for a long time, whether he's been allied with the world government, or either that, or he did not abandon his laboratory as long ago as we think he did. Kizaru has obviously had his Pika Pika no Mi power for a long time, because we've seen him have that ability when, during the flashback with Arlong and Fisher Tiger, when he captured Arlong, Kizaru still had his Pika Pika no Mi power, so he's probably been working on this for a while. But, yeah, at the end of the day, I want to see where you can go further with this. I want to see Haki-resistant Pacifistas. I want to see Pacifistas decked out with a shit ton of weaponry. I want to see Pacifistas being modified with devil fruits. Maybe not necessarily Zoan devil fruits, but taking Paramecia or Logia devil fruits and incorporating them into your robots. Maybe not Logia, because that might be a little bit too rare. You know, you don't want to waste the really powerful fruits, the really rare ones on robots that could be destroyed and you might never get them back. But, you know, certainly Paramecia fruits. You know, like I found a fruit that allows you to... I'm trying to think of a fruit idea that hasn't existed yet. You know, screw it, I'm not super clever. Like, ink fruit. Okay, sure, a fruit that shoots ink at people, like an octopus. Okay, throw that in there. That could be useful, I guess. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas, guys. Don't be mad at me, okay? Alright, anyway, thanks you guys for watching this video. I apologize for the sound. It kind of cut off halfway, but thanks for that. Here's to you, Kuma and Vegapunk, and I hope you make a return to the story very shortly. For Vegapunk, I hope you actually make an appearance shortly, and Sentomaru too. You know, whatever, I'm not a huge fan of the haircut, but, you know, big, you know, sumo dude with a giant axe. Okay, sure, we could see him show back up again. Maybe they'll make an appearance at Reverie. Maybe Reverie will have, like, an entire, like, circle of Pacifistas guarding Marie-Joie during Reverie. That would be cool, right? Alright, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This will be Tekking101 signing out, guys.